Hey everybody, welcome back to Pro Carry Trucker again tonight. Want to finally knock out a history video. It's been a while since I got one out, been real busy at work. I've had my material printed out for quite a while, but have not had time to transfer anything to my notebook right yet. I want to get the video out, so I will transfer information later to my notebook for my permanent copy. Right now, I'm going to read off of my print-offs. If you remember, the last video I did was on the Boston Massacre, where a conflict came about to where the British ended up firing on a group and killing a few, wounding, I think they wounded 8. But the powder was building, and that lit the fuse. We're at the Gaspee Affair, Gaspee. The Gaspee was a boat ship that becomes stranded in low water on a sandbar. Let's get started here. We'll go through this real quick, get this covered. The Sons of Liberty, which I've been covering a little bit about, were very active throughout the colonies, and the British officers charged with enforcing the customs laws and the Stamp Act were becoming aggressive. So we got the Sons of Liberty on the resistance side, or the side for the United States, freedom, their rights. And then you got the British officers, which is for the British government, Parliament. In June of 1772, a dramatic event was to demonstrate the severity of the crisis. A Lieutenant William Duddington, Duddington, of Her Majesty's ship Gaspee, was charged with patrolling the waters of Narragansett Bay. Probably not pronouncing that right. Narragansett, off Rhode Island. Duddington had earned a reputation as an overzealous enforcer, boarding and detaining vessels and confiscating cargoes, often without charge, and often without recourse of merchants whose goods were impounded. Losses were mounting, and it was widely believed, and these harassments were directed specifically at members of the Sons of Liberty. June 9th, 1772, a local vessel out of Newport was underway to Providence when its captain baited the HMS Gaspee and led Duddington into shallow waters near Warwick. The Gaspee ran aground at a place that is now known as Gaspee Point. News of the grounding quickly reached Providence, and a party of 55, led by a man named John Brown, I think he's going to be probably mentioned quite a few times in these videos, planned an attack on the ship. The following evening, they surrounded and boarded the Gaspee, wounding Duddington and capturing the entire crew. All were hauled ashore and abandoned to watch as the Gaspee was looted and then burned. The boldness of this attack was even more remarkable in that none of the attackers made any effort to hide their identities. They're saying, hey, we're standing up for our right, we're fighting back. Duddington and his crew were able to point out most of the participants readily. However, this did them little good because the local courts, too, were I can say this word every time unless I look at it and try to read it. Antagonist towards the Royal Navy. Rather than attempt Rather than attempt to prosecute the attackers, charges were brought against Lieutenant Dunnington for illegally seizing goods. Flopped over on him. When this news reached Parliament, there was outrage. A special commission under the authority of Vice Admiralty Courts was sent to apprehend the perpetrators of the Gaspee Affair and to haul them back to England for trial. Though their identities of the perpetrators were widely known, the investigation was fruitless. No arrests were ever made. Give me just a second. So, after the Boston Massacre really ignited the fuse, they're really going at it now. They're not taking no crap. They are standing up for what they believe in, and they're fighting for it. They're not waiting around no longer. I got some facts about the Gaspee Affair. One thing you got to remember, it's actually down fact 34. There are 40 facts here, but fact 34. The Rhode Island Charter of 1663 established colonial self-government and guaranteed Rhode Island colonists the same right as if they had been born in England. So this is where a lot of this is coming from. The Rhode Island Charter guaranteed these colonists the same rights as a citizen in England has. They are English subjects at the time, but England is treating them basically as not really slaves, but they're using them to try to make the money, and they make the money back from the 7 Years' War and other things. They're wanting to control them with an iron fist, and they're not putting up with it. I'm just going to go over, I'll go over a few of these, but I'm not going to cover all of them. The Gaspee Affair took place on June 9th, 1772 in Narragansett Bay, Rhode Island. Background info. The Revenue Act, which I covered in a video, one of the laws of the Townshend Acts, set new import duties, taxes on British goods. The revenues raised were to clear a massive war debt incurred by the French and Indian Wars, which was the 7 Years' War, and maintain British troops in America and pay for the salaries of royal officials. The British Royal Navy sea officers were enlisted to help enforce customs laws in the American colonial ports. HMS Gaspee was one of the British Navy ships sent to enforce maritime trade laws and the collection of taxes on goods shipped from Britain to America. If you remember, at the time, the colonists are British citizens. British controls the colonies. But Britain decides, hey, this stuff that we're going to ship from Britain to another part of our own country that's under our control, we're going to tax these people that are our citizens to receive goods from us. It did not go over well. Narragansett Bay, Rhode Island, was suspected by the British of being a haven for what they regarded as pirates who were involved in smuggling activities and goods such as rum and molasses, which were some of the big taxed items. The Gaspee was a two-masted schooner with 8 cannon and a crew of approximately 26. So if you remember, there was 55 is what attacked. So 26, 52, so more than double the what was on board the Gaspee. More than double that attacked them. Go down here. Gaspee entered Narragansett Bay in February 1772. Lieutenant Dunningston and his fellow officers had strict orders and generous financial incentives to stamp out illegal smuggling along the American coast. British legislation deputized these officers as custom officials, and they were awarded share of the value of any illicit cargo seized by them. Go down June 9th, 1772, a ship called the Hannah, captained by Benjamin Lindsay, arrived in Narragansett Bay. The Hannah had already cleared customs in Newport. Captain Benjamin Lindsay deliberately refused to lower his flag in defiance to the patrolling Gaspee, and a chase began up Narragansett Bay. Narragansett Bay. Narragansett. Captain Lindsay deliberately led the Gaspee across a submerged sandbar sticking out from Namquid Point, now called Gaspee Point, and the Gaspee ran aground. The Hannah then proceeded up the Providence River to report the British Gaspee plight to the merchant John Brown. John Brown called a meeting of local sea captains and merchants in Providence. They made the decision to attack and destroy the Gaspee. They called for volunteers to take part in the attack, which would be planned by... was Abraham Whipple, Whipple. At 10 p.m. on June 9, 1772, 7 or 8 large longboats, each carrying 8 men, set out from Finner's Wharf and proceeded down the Providence River to where the Gaspee had run aground. They were joined by another couple of longboats at Pawtuxet Village and reached the Gaspee at 1 a.m., June 10, 1772. The Gaspee spotted the approaching boats and sounded the alarm. Abraham Whipple announced he had come to arrest Lieutenant Dunningston. Shots were fired. Lieutenant Dunningston received a bullet in his arm and groin. Ouch. The Patriots and the longboats boarded the Gaspee, which, after a brief struggle, surrendered. 26 against 55 probably didn't take long. The Gaspee crew were imprisoned overnight and released the following morning to join the British fleet at Newport. Lieutenant Dunningston was taken ashore, tended by a doctor, and eventually went to Newport. The Patriots then set fire to the Gaspee and returned to Providence. The identities of the men involved in the Gaspee Affair were protected by a veil of secrecy, which kind of contradicts the previous information we had that they didn't hide their identity. I think what this is stating too is, even though they knew who it was, nobody said anything. Deputy Governor Sessions investigated the affair, interviewing the crew of the Gaspee and Lieutenant Dunningston. Deputy Governor Sessions reported his findings to Great Britain. Lieutenant Dunningston was shipped back to Europe. Whenever a ship had been lost, it was obligatory to undergo court-martial proceedings. Lieutenant Dunningston was therefore court-martialed in Portsmouth, England in October 1772. He was acquitted of any responsibility for the loss. The burning of the Gaspee was viewed by the British as an extremely serious and rebellious act, requiring firm action. Rewards were offered to anyone disclosing the identity of the participants, and an investigatory Royal Commission was established to find the rebels. The Royal Commission into the Gaspee Affair was authorized by the British government to send any culprits directly to England in charges of treason, to trial by a jury of their own peers in the country of the alleged offense. The intention to send colonial political prosecutors to England for trial deprived American colonists of their rights to trial by a jury of their own peers in the country of the alleged offense, was therefore unconstitutional and threatened the independence of the colonies. Deputy Governor Sessions asked Samuel Adams for advice. I think we've all heard of Samuel Adams. The response from Samuel Adams was that he saw the threat as being part of an attempt to rescind the Rhode Island Charter, which had been granted to the colonists in 1663, which we covered in my other printout, which is the Rhode Island Charter 1663 established colonial self-government, guaranteed Rhode Island colonists the same rights as if they had been born in England. We are pretty much getting to, it's war. They're a battle. As we get into the battles, there's a bunch. We at the Gaspee Affair, just on the first page. We still got the Tea Act, the Boston Tea Party, the Boston Port Act, and then we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 more pages of items, of events to go through. I'm not going to cover every event, but once we get into the battles, I'm just going to go off here. Find the year here. To 1775. June 17th, Battle of Bunker Hill. Let's say I skip clear down to December 23rd and 30th, the snow campaign. There are 5 events in between there. Before I start the snow campaign, at the beginning of that video, I will go back and briefly discuss the events. I won't really cover them, but I'll discuss the events that took place up to that point, and then I'll start into the video that I'm doing and go into more detail on that event. I appreciate you watching. Hopefully we'll get some more of these history video out, and we will catch you on the next one.